Good Tuesday morning to you. This is Mark Pierce with Church Requel, and I'm ready to get into this morning's Bible study. I hope that you are as well. We're in Matthew chapter 2, and I'd like to again pick it up with verse 1. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born the King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it was written by the prophet, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. We'll stop there with verse 6. It's always interesting when we take a look at the scripture to see who the characters are. We talked yesterday about some of the terrible things that Herod had done in his lifetime. But it's also very easy for us 2,000 years later, to make easy mistakes when it comes to the Christmas story. Many of us have seen pageants with our children and grandchildren. And of course, when we get to the manger scene, we see Joseph and Mary and the baby. And usually there's an angel or two. And of course, the shepherds come. And of course, there's always 3 wise men. I make the same mistake. Last night, or yesterday morning when we were doing this recording, I said 3 wise men. Well, actually, there aren't 3 wise men here. There are magi from the east. They are wise men, most likely. They may have been astrologers. And they did bring 3 gifts, as we see later on in the story. But there might not have been 3 of them. There certainly were more than one, but how many? Well, we just don't know from what we see here in Scripture. It is interesting when we compare the 3 groups of people. As we mentioned yesterday, there's Herod, and Herod, of course, rejected Christ. There are the scribes and the chief priests who are mentioned here, and they were indifferent to the fact that the Christ child might have been born. And then, of course, we have the 3 magi. Now, these are not likely kings. They might have simply been astrologers. We call them wise men. What they really are seekers. And I find it interesting when we take a look not only at the 3 responses to Christ, as we talked about yesterday, but also where these people came from. Herod, of course, represents great power. He was the king. And he was only interested in finding the Christ child, as we can see later on, to eliminate any possible competition that might have been there for his throne. We see the chief priests and the scribes of the people, who, as we said yesterday, are not all that interested in it. They look up the information for Herod, but they're not actually looking for the Christ child. Now, they're someone I really want to think about today, because it's not too unusual for us to think in terms of powerful men maybe not having an interest in Christianity. But people who are the religious experts, those who have an expertise or a degree, those who are learned, those who maybe study the Bible quite a bit, maybe you, maybe me, can know a lot about what's in here and yet not be seeking after Jesus. Now, these 3 wise men, on the other hand, maybe they know a lot, but maybe not. Maybe really what they are is very ignorant. I mean, maybe What they are astrologers. I mean, maybe they base their worldview on stars rising and falling and following after stars. I mean, this is not the path that we read about in Scripture for how to come to know Christ. But what they did want was to see the Christ child. They were seekers. And we find here that even when they were seeking from a wrong direction, maybe they weren't the chosen people, maybe they weren't as well learned as the experts, maybe they weren't as powerful as King Herod, but they genuinely wanted to know Jesus. And God here not only made sure that they found the Christ child, but that we would never forget throughout all of history, included in His Word, is the fact that men from the East, not particularly religious, not particularly powerful, maybe not even particularly wise, who were seeking after Jesus, found Him. What about your life today? Can you say, I don't necessarily know everything, I may not have all the degrees after my name, and Lord knows I'm not powerful, but I desperately want to know Jesus? If that's true in your life, then God will find a way for you to know Jesus and for Jesus to know you. Have a great Tuesday. I'll talk with you again tomorrow morning.